All right, we're talking about ethics in public relations today, and ethics is a core component of PR. It's huge. Our very profession is tied to the fabric of ethics, because without that, we really get into some murky ground. And we talked a little bit about the progression of PR history last week, and where ethics kind of developed, and some ways that sometimes PR can seem unethical if you go down a different route, such as using people as a means to an end. Today we're going to talk about the PRSA Code of Ethics, what ethics look like in our profession, and really an ethical decision-making process. So when I talk about the ethical decision-making process, there's really 6 steps you want to go through when you are faced with an ethical dilemma in public relations. First of all, obviously, you need to define that there's an ethical situation. To be able to solve something, to be able to approach it, you need to recognize when there is an ethical situation. So that's always number 1, define the situation, define that tension. Number 2 is you want to identify the factors that are playing into that, because in PR, remember, we work with multiple audiences. We're not just concerned with a couple. So anytime you're faced with a situation, you're going to have a lot of different audiences and a lot of different pressures that come into that. What are the pressures legally speaking? What are the pressures from the community? What are the pressures from administration? What contributed to this ethical problem? Is it a function within the organization? Was it someone who was kind of rogue and doing things off on their own? What are all the things that led to this conflict? But you'll be able to pinpoint, hey, here's the issue we're dealing with. Here's what it means for PR. The 4th is you're going to identify the audiences that are affected. You identified the factors and things that led to it, but at the end of the day, who's going to be impacted by the results of this decision? You're going to select an ethical principle that helps you make your decision, and then you're going to justify it. Based on all of the information you found, you're going to come up with a solution. So anytime I say, what are the 6 steps to making an ethical decision, these are what you want to go through. You're identifying, you're locating the factors that influence, you're picking the key values, you're knowing the audiences, you're selecting a principle, and then you justify it. Make sense? Any questions on that? Okay, we're going to work a lot with this today, but I'm going to walk you through some things because I want you to know what are key values. What are you talking about? When I say key value, there's some specific ones. And ethical principles, what does that look like in public relations? Because obviously in the medical field, they have do no harm, right? That's a pretty known medical ethical principle. It could apply to PR too, but what are ours? What do PR people just do? What do you know? So general, very broad-based principles. We have act in the public interest. This is an ethical thing. If you are harming the public, if you are doing something that's knowingly going to bring damage to the communities you're working with, that's unethical in the public relations practice. Use honesty, integrity as your guide. If you are in question of whether you need to fabricate, whether you need to hide details, all of that, honesty and integrity has to be your guide in PR because we're built on relationships. And if people don't trust you, there will not be a relationship. And people don't trust those who lie to them. So you need honesty and integrity. You need to ensure accuracy and truth. Sometimes people say, well, I didn't know it was wrong. I just used this information. In PR, that doesn't fly. If you write something in a press release and it's inaccurate, it comes back to you. It doesn't matter that you didn't know. It's still on your reputation and on your job and legally on you for having something wrong. And you deal fairly with all publics. The last one says this is taken from the PRSA APR study guide, so I just wanted to give credit for where these general principles come from. And this kind of makes sense, right? Given the definition that we've set of public relations, given what we're all about, given that we really care about the publics we're working with, and we really care about the organizations we're representing, and finding that bridge to better society and influence values, opinions, and beliefs, we need these kind of guiding principles. But we get even more specific because guiding principles don't always help when you get in sticky situations. So these are 6 values. Remember, the 3rd step was identify the value that's kind of in conflict. These are 6 of them. So it's a little small, but the first one says advocacy. We serve the public interest by acting as responsible advocates for those we represent. We are champions for the brands we're being ambassadors for. We are working on behalf of nonprofits. We're representing government officials. We're representing causes and products. So we are advocates for them. We provide a voice. That's one of our calls. You cannot be a strong PR person if you're not willing to be a voice for who you're representing. That's why they are retaining your services. That's why you're coming to bat for them, is they expect you to be their voice. And if you stop giving them a voice, then you've lost one of our PR values. PR believes in the value of everyone having a voice, in that democratic exchange of ideas and concepts, and you come on the scene to help people have that voice. So if you stop giving that voice, you've lost one of the values of PR. If you choose not to represent your client to the best of your capabilities, giving them the best voice in the marketplace, that's a problem. The next one is honesty. So it says we adhere to the highest standards of accuracy and truth in advancing the interests of those we represent and communicating with the public. That means we're not supposed to lie. I don't know what the highest standard means. Just don't lie. That's across the board. But it also means how you approach the people. Are you going to try to mislead them by, you gave the information, you told the truth, but you knew the way you were presenting it would get a different reaction than if you had just laid all the details. You know what I mean? There's a way to tell the truth and mislead people and still say you're being honest, and that's why we have this as one of our codes. Because we're not saying just in name be honest, we're saying in all your actions, in the way you communicate, both to your client and to the public. And everything you do, it has to be undergirded by truth and honesty and integrity. It cannot have a lack of those because you're going to lose trust. And that's our function in society. If people can't believe what public relations people are saying, there's going to be problems. That's why we became known for a while as spin doctors, right? That's why people think they can't trust us, because a very few have forgotten about this value, have forgotten that above all, we need to be honest, because the pursuit of truth is important in society and culture, and that's what we're here doing. Expertise. So this basically is that we are committed to having expertise for our clients. You're here getting an education in public relations. You're exemplifying one of our values. Sometimes people say, well, I'm working with people. Why do I need training in PR? You need training because we tell the public and our clients that we are experts and that we know the best practices and the best strategies, and you get that through education. That's why you get a degree in PR. That's why even when you're done with your undergraduate degree, you may go on for a master's. You may join a professional organization that have monthly seminars around your specific topic. You can get accredited in public relations. We do this because we believe it's a value to the client and a value to the public to be the best of the best, to be on top of your game. And you do that by constantly increasing your skill and making sure you're on the edge of everything that's coming out. Independence. We provide objective counsel to those we represent, and we're accountable for our actions. So you can't represent conflicting people. I'm not going to represent both candidates in a political campaign, right? Because I can't actually be completely objective for both of them. I'm going to represent one better than the other. And therefore, I'm not independent. I'm tied. And that's not giving the best voice to both people. It's not being incredibly honest because I'm telling you to vote for two candidates and you can't. There's a need for that separation. And in some sense, people argue for independence even within your employment. So if you're working for an organization, the role of public relations is to pursue truth, to advance the cause, to remind organizations of their values, and to benefit both parties. And sometimes that means you have to have some independence from your employer as well. You have to be willing to go out on a limb and tell them, hey, this isn't what we're about. This kind of goes against our values. This isn't fair to the public. You have to be willing to take that stand as a PR person because that's our profession. That's what we do. If you're not doing that, you're not doing PR. But sometimes people feel so entrenched within their employment. They feel like, well, it's my job and everyone else is doing it and it's what I'm hired to do. We have a value of independence. We have a value of standing up for truth, honesty, the public good, the company good. And that means independence from those we're serving and independence from those we're employed with in that context. Loyalty. We're faithful to those we represent while honoring our obligation to serve the public. You have your clients back, essentially, right? They come to you and they want you to give them a voice. You need to be loyal to them. You can't be selling their secrets to someone else. You can't be, well, I don't really want you to be able to sway the public with this because I like this brand of shampoo better than your brand of shampoo, so I'm not going to do the best job for you. That's not loyalty. Loyalty is you're 100% behind them. You have their back. You have their best interests. You're going to work your hardest, and you're going to get them great results. That, again, is a huge reason why I told you all on the first day, do public relations for organizations, causes, and groups that you care about. Because to be loyal, you really have to care about them. PR, you are heavily vested in. You put long hours in, you do a lot of work, and it's very, very rewarding. But only if you actually care about it. And I think that's why you see burnout. When you start working that hard for something you don't care about, you're going to get drained. But when you're doing it for something you love, you have no problem. Fairness, deal fairly with clients, employers, competitors, peers, vendors, the media, basically everyone. Don't lie to reporters. Don't backstab the other people in the PR industry. Don't have different clients going against each other. Deal fairly. These all kind of stem from each other. You can see how they interrelate. But generally, when you're facing an ethical situation, you're going to be able to pinpoint some of these and say, here's where the real issue is. It's that we're trying to represent two people, or we're not sure we're giving this person a fair voice, or I'm too afraid to go to management and tell them that this is a bad thing with their company values. Usually you can identify a value that's at stake when you're having an ethical dilemma. Does that kind of make sense? Do you guys see this? Okay, any questions? Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, is there any form of like a professional accountability with these? Because like you work for a firm, but say like your firm is breaking one of these values, who holds you accountable for that?
That's a really great question. It's actually, it's a little long-winded, so I'm going to answer it, but just bear with me. Public relations as a profession is segmented. There's no unifying certifying body. So unlike lawyers who have their bar exam or accountants who have the CPA, we have nothing that's set across the board. We do have what we call the accreditation of public relations professionals, but there's only about 5,000 of us. So across the board, there's varying degrees of what this looks like. If you join the Public Relations Society of America, which is the largest pre-professional organization, you sign an agreement to function by this, and if you don't, you are in jeopardy of losing your status with the organization and being kicked out. If your organization isn't functioning, there's no governing body that's going to tell them they can't, because there can be bad practices. A lot of PR people that I know that have been faced with an organization that doesn't, leave the organization. One person, when they told their client, it was a matter of billing that they left over and it was ethical, they said, you know, I'm no longer going to represent you because of this issue with my agency. I wish you the best, but when I saw that they were doing this interaction with you, I couldn't stand behind my company. And the client appreciated it so much, they actually went with the PR person who left the company and took their whole business with them. So on the whole, it works out really well. And usually the way business works, it works out. People want to be treated fairly, but there is no governing body right now. However, most organizations have a charter that you sign when you agree to become a professional with them. And most PR people become associated with PRSA or IABC, which is the Association of Business Communicators. There should be an A in there. I'm not sure what that one is. And there's a couple others, and all of them have similar ideas that you sign on to. It's a great question. Other questions? There have been some pushes for a unifying thing, but the hard part is to make it legal. It would have to be something that's across the board in every state that becomes a here's what it means to be a PR person. And there's a lot of PR people who don't have a degree or haven't gone through a certification, and they still want to be able to say we're qualified to work with people. So it's kind of an issue that's gone back and forth in the industry of can we make an across the board certification, can we not? And that's one way to set yourself apart, is when you do get your APR or you do something like this, you can come to employers and say, I've made a commitment that this is the kind of PR practitioner I will be, just so you know. So let's look at the PRSA Code of Conduct, because I think it's a really good example of how public relations ethics should be carried out. Your chapter was interesting on ethics. I felt like it was a little fluffy, personally, when I read it. Kind of like, be ethical, be a good person, here's some applied ideas. But let's talk about what it looks like. So free flow of information. This is one of the PRSA ideas. And free flow of information is the core principle protecting and advancing the free flow of accurate and truthful information. So you're going to see what the intent of this is, guidelines, if you were a member, and an example of it abused. So the intent is to maintain the integrity of relationships with the media, government officials, and the public, to aim at informed decision making. When you're saying that the free flow of information should go back and forth, the idea of free flow between media out to the public. So for example, if a reporter gets wind of a story, it is not ethical to go to them and ask them to kill it. Just don't tell the public about this. They don't need to know. That's a free flow of information issue. The public has the right to know. Maybe you want to contribute some facts that weren't present. Maybe you want to give your company voice, but trying to stop that flow of information doesn't work out ethically. So an example of an improper use is a member representing a ski manufacturing gives a pair of expensive racing skis to a sports magazine columnist to influence the columnist to write favorable articles about the product. Now, PR people generally like giving away gifts. We do that a lot. But if we're giving away a gift with the intent of changing how someone conveys information to others, we are no longer letting the information flow freely, right? we're trying to influence it in a way of buying that person off, essentially. So you can't buy reporters. You can't offer to, hey, we're going to pay all the advertising if you'll write us an article that makes it look objective but says great things that you don't really think. That's not allowing the free flow of information. Our goal is to get all the information out there in a way that they can accurately report it, because journalists are committed to truth. They're committed to understanding the issue, and that's what we are too, right? We're committed to truth. We're committed to letting the public have the information. Sometimes we're representing the side of it. We do what's framing, and we'll talk about that later. But when you start interfering with the free flow of information, that's an ethical dilemma. So don't buy reporters, don't try to influence them, give them the information and work with them to the best of your ability. Any questions on free flow of information? Yeah.
So to me, this sounds like any information in that company or organization, the public is allowed to know. But like,
that's a good
if
distinction.
it's like something personal, like how do you just not let them know that? Like it's none of your...
It's none of your business. That's a great question, because as PR professionals, we don't release all the information. That's not really valuable to our client, and that sometimes breaks trust as well. But what this is about is not changing the information that's already going out there. So if a reporter is covering you and they have details and you've given them details, let them decide how they're writing the story. Don't try to give them a lot of gifts to make them write it well. Let them do it on their own. Or this bottom one, a member entertaining a government official beyond the legal limits and or in violation of government reporting requirements. So in an effort to help the government, because governments, depending what sector you get in, they put out a lot of reports that can influence how your company functions. So if you are interacting with key publics, which we do all the time, in the effort to try to get them to change information that should be out there, change honest information, change a report, act favorably in a way that's essentially buying them off. It's like bribery. That is the stopping of free flow of information. We obviously want to do things in a good light. We obviously want to give great information, and there is some things we don't share. But when you go to the point of bribing, of buying people off, of trying to get them to change their story based on you influencing them outside of truth and facts, that becomes an issue. That's a great observation. Other questions? Anyone wrestling with this? Yeah.
So what's the difference if I had like a clothing line and I had like Tommy wear one of the clothing items in
Yeah.
effort to like advertise the brand? Would it be wrong if then he was saying like this is my favorite brand when it's not true? Is that what's wrong? Or
That would be, he should write what he actually thinks. That's an interesting issue, because now we have a lot of bloggers who you buy them and they become brand ambassadors, and you're paying them to say that. So the public needs to know if they're being paid to say that, if there's some sort of economic relationship there. It would also be wrong if he was writing his own thing and you knew that in 2 weeks he's about to make a really big statement about a clothing line and he's going to name his favorite, and you decide to give him every piece of clothing you've ever made just for free, just because you're a great person. That's bribery. That's you giving him everything and saying, you know what, we could also make you something from scratch if you want, as long as it's before the 2-week deadline. That becomes where you are influencing him in such a way that you're trying to buy it off. So you could pay him to say it as long as that is a disclosed relationship, or he could write his own thing based on you sending a outfit or something, because that's very common in the fashion industry, but not in such a way that it would beat competitors in that sense. CES, does anyone kind of follow that industry at all? Okay, CNET is a really highly valued electronic consumer reporter thing. My husband reads it all the time, and he just sent me an article last week talking about how there was a competition and CNET got to cast a vote for it during CES about like the greatest product or the upcoming product or most valuable product or something, and this is where all the electronic shows go to release their most valuable information and see what's happening. CNET had a parent company who tried to influence who they would vote for, which would influence who would win, which would influence the free flow of information, the actual disclosing of products, because the parent company said, we don't want this product to win, even though CNET thought it should win, so don't cast your vote there. That's an example of lack of free flow. It's not actually any longer about the actual truth, about the facts, it's about people in power making decisions or buying people off in an effort to stop the flow of information. Does that help kind of clear it up? Okay. Competition. We actually really value competition. We think it's healthy and that it's fair and that it brings out the best in us. So PR people like competition. So the intent is to promote respect and fair competition among public relations professionals. And this serves the public and it serves our clients the best. An example of an improper use is a member employed by a client organization shares helpful information with a counseling firm that is competing with others for the organization's business. So, for example, I'm going to come to someone and say, I want to understand if you're the best PR agency for me. And someone inside my company, a PR person that works for me, tells you all about it so you can make a better pitch. That's not actually competition, that's insider's information. That's giving a firm something that they wouldn't have otherwise, and it's putting them ahead of the other people who are competing. You want to give everybody a fair chance. You want to let everybody have a good pitch, because we think the best ideas come out in competition. Not because you have an insider source who's going to give you the details about the company, but because we're actually the best of the best, because your agency would be able to do the best campaign, would come up with the best ideas, would have the best connections. So if you do something to hinder competition, that's an ethical challenge. If you are trying to block people out so they can't participate, if you are even in a sense backstabbing within the own industry, when you're trying to climb the corporate ladder, it can get sticky. But we like competition. You should thrive in that. You should allow other people to make you better, not see them as who can I stab in the back first because I want to be the only one. That's not when you're the best. You're the best when there is competition around you. Questions about our value of competition? Yeah.
When you gave the example, were you saying that like the PR firm would already know about everything about the company or vice versa?
The PR firm would get insider information about the company from an employee inside there. So if Biola was looking to hire a PR firm, and I have a friend who runs a firm down in Orange County, and I went down and gave them all this extra information, that's not exactly fair because other PR firms wouldn't have gotten that information when they all go to compete. And it just doesn't make for the best competitive environment and actually reveal who the best PR people is. It's just who had that connection. Good question. Other questions? Okay. Disclosure of information. Now this goes closely with the free flow of information, but the disclosure of information is slightly different. So the core principle is open communication fosters informed decision making in a democratic society. And the intent is to build trust with the public by revealing all information needed for the responsible decision making. We are not committed to giving all of the information all of the time. That's not wise. We can't do it legally in a lot of situations, and it's not strategic. But we are dedicated to, giving the information that's needed for informed decisions. So if you are representing something like a new school district that's going to go into a community, and you have information about how that will help children in more sporting programs, how that may influence the local high school, how that will help with higher SAT scores, you give all the information, including if you find out whether that means there could be an increased cost for taxes within that area and the public want to know it. You need to give them all of the information. It's only fair. You can't hold back parts of it. So, for example, improper use. A member implements grassroots campaigns or letter writing campaigns to legislatures on behalf of undisclosed interest groups. So let's say I really care about an organization. I care about Compassion International, right? And I decide I want to make a difference. I own my own PR firm, and the best way to get a change is really through the people, through grassroots, through people rising up and saying, we care about this. So I employ all of you to start writing letters and saying that you really care about it. So it looks like it's grassroots, but it's not grassroots. I'm hiding the fact that I hired you to do that. I'm not disclosing the information that makes it an accurately informed decision, because legislatures would look and say, wow, 30 people just wrote, when in fact it's one person hiring 30 people. There's a big difference. Another example is a practitioner for a corporation knowingly fails to release financial information, giving a misleading impression of the performance of the company. So another sector you may want to get into is financial relations. And if it's a public company, you disclose information about stocks, about the health of the company, about products. And if you fail to give information that shows something's going wrong, that's not disclosing information you should have. You should give all that information. You're legally bound to, but also ethically, because it changes how people make decisions. That's a key piece of information that they need in the decision-making process. Last but not least, a member deceives the public by employing people to pose as volunteers to speak at public hearings and participate in a grassroots campaign. That's another example. If I hire someone to act like it's their opinion and to go out and picket, to promote, to walk for parades, whatever, and it gives the impression that it's all of you doing it on your own will because that's what you think, and I do not disclose that I hired you, that's an ethical violation. It's a violation of what people think. It's a violation of the information they'd have. Does that kind of make sense? You have to disclose those connections. And that's an interesting statement when you pointed to the idea of if he had been hired or if he wanted to say it's his favorite because you gave financial incentive, essentially. As long as you disclose it, that's fine. It's when you don't disclose it that it becomes an ethical problem here. Questions on this? Is this making sense? Okay, so we have free flow of information where you don't change how the information is going out. Then we have competition, which is good. And we have disclosure of information, meaning that when you have those important pieces, things that actually change, or you're tied and you have a connection, such as hiring somebody to do something, you have to disclose that information. Safeguarding confidences. This is actually one of my favorite things because I just really enjoy it. It could be the pastor's kid in me that grew up with lots of secrets anyway, but the idea is that public relations people have a trusted place in society and culture. The public should trust you, and your business should trust you. Your organization, your management. They should see you as a person they can talk to, and it stops with you. Obviously, if it's illegal, it doesn't stop with you. But to that extent, they can come and talk to you. They can talk out ideas. They can talk out concerns. They can share some very volatile information, and you can help them figure out the best way to take that public. The intent is to protect the privacy rights of clients, organizations, and individuals by safeguarding information. So no matter where you are, if you are employed by, let's say you're employed by Disney, for example, and you find out sensitive information, if you leave Disney and you go work for Knott's Berry Farm, you can't share that information. You had that under a protected relationship. They trusted you. And that is part of our ethical agreement. That's part of what you take on when you're a PR person. You don't just go trade your client's secrets. You can use industry knowledge, you can use best practices, you can use connections, but you can't sell out your client. They trusted you. You can almost think of like a psychologist and their relationship. Their clients trust them. It stays with that psychologist. When your clients come to you and tells you proprietary information, private information, sensitive information, it stays with you. It doesn't go on. And I love that. I love that you get to be a trusted person for people. And that is a necessary component. If you really want to have a voice in management, if you really want to be the person that helps the company's values extend out and someone who helps reach the organizations and the people, people need to trust you and they need to know that you're a safe person to go talk to. And that you don't freak out when they come to tell you that this horrible thing is happening and they don't know what to do. You need to be calm enough and informed enough to know what next steps to take and to walk them through that. That's our job. Our job is to deal with the sticky in an ethical way, in a truthful and honest way. Questions about safeguarding confidences? Cool. Conflict of interest. So a core principle for avoiding real, potential, or perceived conflicts of interest that builds with trust of clients, employers, and the publics. The intent is to earn trust and mutual respect. Obviously, we've talked about that, and to build trust. So an example of an improper use of this conflict of interest, the member fails to disclose that he or she has strong financial interest in a client's chief competitor. So for example, if Biola comes to me and they say, you know what, we'd really like you to take on a campaign for us. We want to recruit more students. But I'm on the board at APU and I am a financial contributor to APU and I don't bother telling Biola that. That's a conflict of interest, right? Because they're competitors, and I'm actually feeding into one while trying to represent another. That doesn't make sense. Do you guys see that? The same could be true if you're representing someone in a political race. That's an easy way to understand it. If I'm related to someone in a political race, I probably can't represent their competitor. Or if you are looking at even nonprofits and their causes, it would be very hard for you to represent World Vision and Compassion at the same time. They're both child sponsorship organizations. How do you do that fairly? And how do you do that ethically? That's a conflict right there, because you can't have a conflict of interest. Because again, if you go back to that list of values, remember we talked about loyalty. So who are you loyal to? That's a question that comes up during the conflict of interest. Any questions on this one? Yes?
Do we have to know like all this information?
No, this is to help conceptualize it. You do want to know obviously be able to name them, conflict of interest, free flow of information, competition, all of those. But I'm not going to ask these exact ones. I want you to understand how they are, because I will give you situations and you'll identify it. And we're going to practice that in class today. You guys will get to kind of work with these for sure. But I want you to understand the concept and what it's intended to do. Other questions? Okay. All right, last, I think, is enhancing the profession. We are dedicated as PR professionals to helping the public, to helping clients, and to enhancing our profession as PR people. You have a lot riding on you if you become a PR professional. There's a lot of eyes on you. I was just talking with a student today how it's really interesting. In PR, 100 people can function ethically, can do great campaigns, and all it takes is for one person. That makes headlines. Everyone is talking about it, and everyone looks back and goes, wow, PR, that's a bad profession. So it only takes one person to mess up. That's why we're dedicated to enhancing the profession. So we have things like expanding our knowledge. Remember, expertise was one of our commitments. So when you go and you get more training, so you are better at being a PR professional, you're enhancing the profession. When you go out and you speak to people about what public relations is, so the public is informed about our profession, you're enhancing our profession. When you come up with ways that PR is a better place because of it, that's enhancing it. So an example is a PRSA member declares publicly that a product the client sells is safe without disclosing evidence to the contrary. If I knew something was bad and I go to the public and say, this is great, let all your kids use it. No, there's no side effects. I'm not going to enhance the profession. I'm doing the profession harm because as a PR professional, people look at me and say, wow, that's what PR people do? Can't trust you. Does that make sense? If you do something that lies or that hurts the public or that destroys trust, you're also breaking this value of enhancing the profession. Questions on it? All right, so to recap, we have the decision-making process. First of all, you say, here's the thing. This is the first slide we had. Here's the situation. Here's the ethical dilemma. You identify where it is. And then you look at everything that led up to that. Why are we having this problem? Is it something that came down from management? Is it something internal? Is it external? Is it coming from the public? Is it coming from the government? Is it one employee? Is it the whole organization? We had the key values. The idea of advocacy, the idea of loyalty, those were our key values, those 6. You identify which value it is, who's going to be affected, and you select an ethical principle. Is it the free flow of information? Is that the principle you're keeping to that it needs to happen? Is it disclosure of information? Is it conflict? Is it enhancing the profession? What is your ethical principle that's going to justify the decision you choose to make in that situation? And then you justify it. Because often, if your boss comes to you and says, why did you decide to do this? You have to have a reason. You can't just say, well, I think it's ethically wrong. That's very ambiguous. Why is it ethically wrong? How is it ethically wrong? How does this play out? You're going to be able to tell them, well, here's the situation as I saw it. Did we understand that? Cool. Okay, and here's all the factors that led to it, which mean we're talking about this value. And if I look at the audiences, that means I need to use this principle because as a public relations professional, here's how we function. And that's why I came to this decision. Do you see how all these pieces go together? Any questions on any of this? I know it's a lot to take in. We're about to practice it. So if you have a question, it's a great time. No questions? Okay. So let's do this test. There's no grade. This is just a PRSA ethics test that they put out. I think it was last year while they were having their ethics month. And you can keep score for yourself. You're having a briefing meeting with a new client and want to be sure to capture all their comments. So you bring a tape recorder to the meeting. You don't want it to be a distraction, so you place it inside your folder on the table and record the meeting without mentioning it to the client. Are you breaching ethics?
Yes.
Why?
Because you're not telling them that you're recording their conversation.
So it'd be a lack of disclosure of information. Good. Yes, you're breaching ethics. It's fine to record conversations. People do it all the time. The person has to know they're being recorded. And the 4 different PRSA Code of Ethics provisions, free flow of information, you want them to understand because they may say something differently if they knew they were being recorded. Disclosure of information, the fact that you are recording them. Safeguarding confidences, you would kind of feel like your trust was broken if you found out someone just recorded you. And conflict of interest. Because what are you committed to? Are you committed to that conversation? Why are you recording it? You have to explain it to them. All of those would be in jeopardy. Let's try another one. The focus of the PRSA Board of Ethics and Professional Standards is to enforce member codes of ethics for PRSA members. Is that why we have ethics? You kind of hit on this very question when you asked who follows this. So think through this. I've had people go both ways. That's not why we have ethics. We didn't create ethics to enforce it on our members. We have ethics because that's what public relations is. We need ethics to function properly in society. So it's not a policy force, we're not policing it. It's a statement of, we believe these are the highest standards for the profession, and the people who are agreeing to abide by it all sign this, all agree to it. But they weren't created to force people, they were created to illustrate what good public relations is. Does that make sense? Okay. Who are the primary beneficiaries of professional ethics and public relations? Now this one I didn't agree with, but they said just pick one. Who's the primary benefit? If you're ethical as a PR professional, does it primarily benefit clients, society, or PR professionals? Okay, good. It says, I thought clients too. It said public relations professionals. It ultimately benefits us primarily because we fulfill our role in society, we're truthful, we build trust, and one of our roles is to best serve our clients. So when we're best served, they're best served. I couldn't just pick one. I would say clients definitely benefit, but we're just doing their quiz. So you recently took a graduate class on leadership and the professor said something interesting and it made you think. So you decided to write a white paper, which is essentially like a short essay you can think of about it and post it on your website. Can you do that without citing the professor? Can you take their ideas from their lecture, write up a paper and post it on your website? It's plagiarism if you take someone else's ideas and represent it as your own. So we were talking about ethically, you need to disclose information. If you get your idea from someone else, disclose it. And we do that throughout the whole industry. That's why copywriting doesn't need to be such a big issue. If you realize every time you take something from someone else, you credit them, you give them access to that. And that also leads to competition, right? It doesn't suddenly appear that you hold all the cards because you're saying these other people came up with the idea. You had lunch with a business colleague one afternoon and detailed a dream you had of someday starting a consulting business. The person basically rips you off, takes your idea, and makes a book. Is that copyright infringement? No. You can't copyright an idea, unfortunately. So if you have a great idea and you think your friend's going to steal it from you, don't share it because it's not copyrighted. Only copyrighted is when something's tangible. So you can go and talk to people. Now, my recommendation would be if you have a friend who has a great idea, don't steal it from them because that breaks trust anyway. Yes?
What if you wrote it out and you're talking to them, like, I don't know, over email or something about something that you were going to do, and then they stole it? Would that be?
You might have a case. It'd be hard to prove. It depends what it is and how long in advance they had it and whether you took it to fruition first or they did and whether you sent it to a copyright office or not. It's a good question. Yeah. It doesn't always have to be copyrighted, but it has to be in concrete form. So if I said I had a great idea, and even if I wrote it, but someone else made it happen first, I don't think I could sue them for that. Someone else had their hand up. No? Good.
I was going to ask about plagiarizing, but then I kept reading.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Okay, during a media interview, your CEO misstates a key fact about your firm's product's capability, making it sound like it's much better than it is. And it wasn't intentional. He didn't get up there planning to lie. It just was a misstatement. What should you do? Nothing. It's too late because he did a media interview. It's out there. Send a letter to the editor asking for a printed correction. Send a notice to your customers making them aware, or B and C. Yeah, you have to do both. Because even if it's stated and word gets out, you can't guarantee you're correcting that wrong information just by sending something back to the publication. So you need it to get to all your customers because we talked about the free flow of information, right? So if they get information and it's wrong and they make a decision based on that wrong information, it's on you to fix that flow of information because it was the wrong flow. It wasn't free flowing. He said the wrong thing and gave the wrong information which led to wrong decisions, right? You need to fix that. A code of ethics, strictly defined, can be written by any group wishing to distinguish its members in some way. Can anyone come up with a code of ethics? Yeah, we all can, and that's one reason why PR organizations do. We could create a code of ethics for this class. I typically use PR essays because I agree with it, how it's defined. Oh, okay, you are a sole practitioner and have 5 clients, and you want to have internships that are unpaid, but students get credit. Is that unethical? No, there's a lot of unpaid internships. I found it humorous that this was in here because it's for working PR professionals, but we're doing it in an education setting, and almost all of you will probably have an unpaid internship. People just don't realize the value. All right, we are going to get back into it. We just talked about how you solve an ethical decision, how you go through a process, what values you have. But I think a deeper question that you really need to grapple with before getting into public relations is what ethics are to begin with. We've talked about how they play out in PR, but until you understand ethics at their core, what difference does it make? So someone made some guidelines that you should do. So I had fun just kind of going around online looking at different people and what they thought of ethics. So the field of ethics or moral philosophy involves systemizing, defending, and recommending concepts of right and wrong behavior. Okay, Webster, always a good one. The discipline dealing with what is good and bad and with moral duty and obligation. You can kind of see how what we were talking about plays into that. But I think ethics actually depend a lot on your morality, a lot on your worldview. And that is really why your Christian faith plays into your ethical view of public relations. So doing something that is good requires you to understand what is good, right? There has to be a definition. If I tell you, well, do what's good, what does that mean? Utilitarian people think good is whatever is best for the greatest number. So if you play that out in your mind, you can see how if you take a utilitarian view of ethics or of the world, you could practice public relations in a different way than you would if you defined good in a different manner. So if good is whatever is best for the greatest number of people, is it okay to trample over the individual? Is it okay to ignore minority groups who are being oppressed and perhaps use them in an effort to an end because it's better for the whole society? You could take a relativistic view of ethics, and that's what is good for you is your personal thing, and what is good for me is my personal thing, and it's because it's relative. We have different views of the world, different belief systems, and that's okay. That view of ethics to me is terrifying. I don't want someone to have their own personal conception of ethics and treat me under that. I want to have an objective sense, and that's this last one. What is right and good is defined outside of each individual and by universal measurement. When I say universal measurement, I'm thinking that there's something outside of humanity that came up with a standard that we all live by. C.S. Lewis uses this argument to say there's pointing towards God because we all innately know some things. You know that murder is wrong. You know certain right and wrong attributes, no matter what culture you're in, no matter what age group you're in, no matter where you've grown up. You have these innate things, and that points to a moral lawgiver, C.S. Lewis would argue. And that moral lawgiver defined what is good, what is right, and he is outside of humanity because someone must be outside to set a standard that applies to everyone. Therefore, we point to God. I tend to go to the objective standard. I think there is a moral lawgiver. I think there are things that universally apply, and that is how I understand ethics. I am going to make my decisions based on my worldview with the assumption that there is a God who created this universe and it functions under certain principles, and each and every one of you is here by God's design, not by happen chance. And because you're here by God's design, because you're created in His image, you're worthy of respect. You're worthy of being truthfully engaged with. You're worthy of being treated with dignity and not used to get to an end. Does that make sense? That's my worldview. So Christians and PR actually have a strong tie, and it usually comes up in this ethical decision, this ethical conversation, because your ethics are defined by your worldview, and they stem from your worldview. Questions come to mind such as, do you believe there is a God? Your answers will radically shift how you approach life. Do you believe that people have innate value? Do you believe that there is objective right and wrong, or is everything subjective? Your answers to these questions, the outflowing of your worldview, helps shape your approach to ethics, which results in your approach to the public relations profession. So what is the essence of this world? What is man? Is there a God? What is the nature of reality? All of these things are areas that you're already engaging. Most of you have a worldview. You're probably shaping your worldview while you're here at Biola. Going through your Bible classes, you're going to refine that. Going through hopefully all your courses, you refine that. And your pursuit of God throughout your lifetime refines your worldview. But there are some set principles that have come out of a Christian worldview. Do you guys kind of resonate with this? Are you seeing this connection? Some people seem to have a harder time making this connection because they see it as their worldview over here, and ethics are a set of rules that you abide by. But I'm telling you, ethics are not a set of rules. They directly stem from how you live your life. If you believe people are created in the image of God, it's not a matter of, does this rule apply to me treating you with respect or not in this situation? It just is. That's who people are. If you believe in a God who is a giver of truth, who calls you to pursue truth and to take truth into all the world, you're not going to go out spinning lies and telling people deceitful things. It stems from your worldview. And your conviction, your passion, your readiness to stand on those ethical issues will make or break based on your worldview. Because if at the end of the day, if it's just a rule, if that's the only reason you're doing that ethical line of reasoning, and your job is on the line, you're probably going to give up your ethics before your job. But if your ethics are based on your assumptions about the nature of this world, the nature of reality, and the nature of mankind and God, you can't really give that. That's not something you can change. It's what is true. Do you see the difference? It's either functioning by this is the rules, or this is the way the world is. You can't deny it. The sky is blue. I have to live like this. I function within this ethical framework because this is the way the world is. Do you have any questions about this? Okay, so some things to consider. The nature of this world. We obviously engage in a physical world all the time, and that's where we're going to be practicing public relations. We put on campaigns, we interact with clients, we create press releases, and we engage with the media. But the reality is we're not just physical beings. We also have a spiritual component. So what does that mean when you're saying your profession is about influencing values, opinions, beliefs, and behaviors? You're talking about eternal consequences then, because we're dealing with spiritual beings, not just physical. So humanity is created in the image of God, deserving of value simply by design. If you get into PR, you deal with people all the time. You deal with difficult people, you deal with great people, you deal with some people you hope you never have to deal with again, you deal with people that you love. But at the end of the day, they're all people. And your assumption of how people deserve to be treated, no matter how much they can pay you, no matter how they're treating you, just by the essence of them being made in the image of God, influences your ethical response to them, influences how you treat them. Can you be loyal to them even if you dislike them? Yeah, they're people. Can you tell them the truth? Yeah, even if you don't like them. There is a God. That's something to consider. There is a God. I would argue for that. You guys all know I come from an apologetics background. I would love to have a whole class talking about all the different ways you can show that there is a God, and we could go through them. But this is intro to PR, so we'll save that. But going on the assumption that there is a God, that changes how you interact in this world. If there is a God, then you treat people differently, you live differently, you make different decisions. Because if there is a God, then your lifespan is different. It's not just in between when you're born and when you die, there's something more. It's not just every man for themselves, there's a grand plan. It's not just you're here because you happened into existence, it's that you were brought here with a purpose. Your entire approach to humanity, to life, to the profession changes. And the nature of reality is that we're currently experiencing something that is really happening for all of us. It's not subjective. I'm not sitting here having my own view of the world, your own view of the world. They're not all truths that are true for you, not true for me. It's something we're all together in. We really interact. There are real consequences. There are real people who are really hurting, and it's really something you can change. That's the nature of an objective world. It's outside of yourself. You don't get to control reality. You are in reality. And truth is what corresponds with reality. If something is real, it's what is corresponding to the actual physical world we live in. Does that make sense? Okay. So one of my favorite verses in this context, I love a lot of verses, is Philippians 4:8. Whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on these things. That is my approach to a lot of things in life. But if I had a different worldview, I probably wouldn't need this. It probably wouldn't guide me. I might say whatever makes me the most money, whatever's the easiest, whatever's the quickest way to the top of the ladder. And yeah, I'd like to help culture, but at the end of the day, it's okay as long as I get my job done. That might be my ethical stance if I'm being candid, outside of my worldview. If there wasn't a God and I didn't believe people were created in his image, and I didn't believe there's eternal consequences, and all I have is until the day I die, then I would approach life differently. But because of my worldview, I use this to guide my profession. This is another verse. The Lord your God is one. Let the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength, and love your neighbor. If you have a worldview that says everything to the core of who you are should be a pursuit of God, then how you pursue your profession is also a pursuit of God. And how you go about that profession should be loving your neighbor. And if you love your neighbor like yourself, okay, let's be honest, how many of us really walk around lying to ourselves, trying to deceive ourselves, trying to get us to buy products that aren't good, trying to do things we don't do that. We want the best for ourselves, right? Then you should want the best for the publics too, that you're serving, and the best for your client. Hopefully all of you have a good friend in your life who will tell you the truth even when it's hard to hear, who will call you out on things. That's kind of the relationship you have with an employer at times, with your company. You will tell them the truth in difficult situations. You will keep them on track because you love them, because you're called to love your neighbor as yourself. All right, this is the end of the lecture portion. We talked through what ethics are. We talked through what the applications are in the industry, the 6-step process, the values, the principles, and then we talked through how ethics actually stem from your worldview. If your worldview is different, your ethics will be different.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.